Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:06 on this Friday morning in your nation's capital. Thanks for joining us. Always good to talk with you on a Friday because we're going to finish off your week and then launch you into this beautiful autumn weekend perfectly. Coming up at 6:35, Ron Halber, CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council, on the offing of that dirtbag terrorist in Gaza. 7:05, Hans von Spakovsky will join us to talk about the latest early voting and election ballot provisions going on in these states leading up to the election day. 7:35, Bram Weinstein on the Commanders weekend ahead. And then at 8:05, Eli Lake, again on the killing of that October 7th mastermind. Oh, and Kevin Sorbo is going to join us to talk about the Reagan movie, available now on streaming. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. Happy Yachty Friday.
A little Baker Street going on there. Yeah,
I'm just seeing like Farrah Fawcett hair, leather purse, high-waisted skirt, knee-length skirt. Like I just see the vibe. I just feel the vibe.
You got to get ready for Yacht Rock this weekend. Every weekend is an opportunity to listen to Yacht Rock. All right. Last night was the Al Smith dinner. Now this is an annual affair. Well, I should say quadrennial affair. Every 4 years, right before the presidential election. For decades now, the Catholic Charities in New York, the largest archdiocese in the country. Well, actually, I think Los Angeles is a larger archdiocese now, but let's just go with it. The most populous archdiocese in the country, New York, they host this dinner to raise money for Catholic Charities. And one of the great things about it is that it's always been sort of a opportunity for Republicans and Democrats to get very dressy, white tie affair.
Prominent Republicans and Democrats, by the way. Top, as in yes. President, Vice President, yes. Speaker of the House, Senate,
Yes, including the nominees for president. It always happens a couple of weeks, right now before the election.
Mm-hmm. So it's a who's who in politics. That's right.
And they set their weapons aside rhetorically, and they have fun, and they tell jokes. It's a roast. They make fun of each other. They tell jokes. It is great, and it's what makes America great. And this year, for the first time since 1984, the Democrat nominee, Kamala Harris, refused to show up.
Is it because of her the interview she did with Bret Baier where she bombed, and so she just doesn't want to face people cracking jokes about that interview, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a legitimate thing. But no, she made this announcement like 5-6 weeks ago, so we've known she wasn't going to show up. I'm not sure. We can speculate a little bit later about why she didn't do it, but let's get to some of the funnies because it was good. Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, he was the MC of the evening.
The Democrats have been telling us Trump's re-election is a threat to democracy. In fact, they were so concerned of this threat, they staged a coup, ousted their democratically elected incumbent, and installed Kamala Harris. In other words, all her dreams have come true. Really? It really makes you consider the power of prayer, right, Cardinal? Sometimes prayers take 3.5 years and a George Clooney op-ed.
That's good. That's good.
Maybe we're seeing why Kamala Harris didn't want to show up. Now, by the way, I got to say, and we've got some of Donald Trump's jokes, and they're good, and we're going to go through it. But can I just say something?
Okay.
Everybody with a brain in their head knows that the Al Smith dinner is a roast. And 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton showed up for it. Mm-hmm. She told a bunch of jokes about Donald Trump. And Donald Trump went up and told a bunch of jokes about Hillary Clinton. And everybody laughs. Yes. And she laughed at him, and he laughed at her, and that's what these things are. I want to read you the headline from USA Today about last night's dinner. Are you ready?
Ready.
Donald Trump attacks Kamala Harris and others at charity dinner.
Oh, goodness. Good. Are you sure that's not a CBS headline?
Yeah, right. That is USA Today. I mean, honestly, they
don't get it, or they intentionally, they are panicked, and they're doing whatever it takes to make Americans hate Trump.
All right. So Trump's monologue was rather lengthy, actually, and they don't use teleprompters. So he just goes up and he's reading the jokes off of a sheet of paper.
Okay.
And obviously these were written for him because sometimes if a joke didn't work, he would say, "Well, that was a lousy joke."
Or he'd say, "Oh, their guys got me in trouble with this one."
Right. And by the way, understand something. Chuck Schumer was sitting right next to him at the podium.
It was so fun to watch.
And he was laughing and he was playing along because he's a normal human being. All right. Here are, in no particular order, 5 of Trump's best jokes last night. Here we go.
I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods, but then I met Tim Walz.
Oh, that's a good one.
See,
That's a good one.
That's exactly.
That's a good one.
I think that. All right. Here's the next one.
Well, I'd better wrap up because Mayor Adams told me earlier that I needed to make this one very quick, especially the city has reserved this room for a large group of illegal aliens coming in from Texas.
That's pretty good.
Yes.
You were, by the way, Mayor Eric Adams, who, as you know, is now facing federal charges. He was the focus of many of the jokes last night.
I can imagine.
Many.
There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White Dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White Dudes for Harris? Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me.
That
That's
might be
good.
my favorite one.
I think that's why it's the wives and her lovers.
And their lovers. White Dudes for Harris.
MAGA
Their
men.
wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me.
Oh, that's funny.
That's
That is
good. All right. Here's another one. Stand by.
A major issue in this race is childcare, and Kamala has put forward a concept of a plan. A lot of people don't like it. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep him away. That's a nasty one. Schumer.
That's a nasty one.
I do like that he commented on it himself.
Oh,
But
that's
it's
good.
funny. Don't let Doug Emhoff near the nannies.
Well, for anybody who didn't know about the Doug Emhoff backstory, time to go Google it.
All right. And then I like this one. Again, I think my favorite one is the White Dudes for Harris one. But here's one specifically for Chuck Schumer.
Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum. Doesn't he look glum? He looks glum.
By the way, right there at that moment, because Chuck Schumer's sitting right next to him, he reaches over and he pats him on the shoulder and he sort of gives him a look at him looking glum.
You know why this is so important, Larry? Because at the end of the day, I think so many people lose their hair and lose their heads over politics.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, the people who they're so riled up against or for recognizes this is just an election, just politics. We're people at the end of the day, and we can still be
100%.
have affinity for each other.
All right, but I got to get to this joke
go.
about Schumer. All right, sorry. I wanted to give you the body language there.
But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
Here you go.
That's a good one.
Those are the top 5 Trump jokes last night. Although there were more, and as the morning goes on, we'll try to get more of them to you. It is. In fact, you know what? We'll try to roll some out right now. I think we've got some more Jim Gaffigan as well, and some of the other jokes that happened. Oh, and Kamala did present a pre-taped video.
Again with the pre-tapes and the
that was
taping and the
supposed to be
editing.
right. Exactly. She couldn't
Again
show up
with
live
it.
to give jokes, so she delivered a video, and we'll let you all decide if it's funny or not. It's 6:17, and we're reflecting on last night's Al Smith dinner. Donald Trump delivered about a 25 to 30-minute monologue there of written and prepared jokes, a roast, and it was really good. In fact, during his intro, well, I'll play a little bit of the introduction because it's really great stuff, and again, it sort of presents him. Kamala Harris didn't show up, Patrice, for this, and it's an opportunity to sort of present yourself as, presidential.
Funny or relatable.
Yes.
He's done a great job. Senator Schumer, good. Yeah, I supported him. I don't know. He used to say that's true, and now I'm not sure he would, but I gave him his first check from an office in Beach Haven, and I was very proud of it. I don't know about lately. Now I was. It was his first check. He was running, and I said, he's a good man. Senator Gillibrand, thank you very much. Thank you very much for working hard.
See, and so he's sitting there. He's thanking these Democrats, senators and New York politicians. And by the way, Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, who is prosecuting Donald Trump, she was there. She gave him a standing ovation when he entered, and I mean,
it's I mean, the joke where he made, where he's like, it's good to be.
Yeah, let's listen to it. I think we've
Okay.
got this one. It's cut 22,
Perfect.
Michael, if you could. Do you see that in the cut sheet? There you go.
It's a true pleasure to be with you this evening. Amazing pleasure. And these days, it's really a pleasure anywhere in New York without a subpoena for my appearance.
There you go. And with her in the background, I mean, it's one of those awkward moments. I'm actually just reading the New York Times rundown of it, and they can't help themselves. They fall over themselves trying to applaud Kamala Harris's taped, non-funny video, and then are just calling President Trump insulting throughout it. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, here is the video that Kamala Harris sent. This features the Saturday Night Live character. What was it? Mary Margaret. I can't remember. Well, here, take a look. It's the awkward schoolgirl,
Yes.
Catholic schoolgirl character from Saturday Night Live, like 20 years ago. Not the funny version of Saturday Night Live. Anyway, here, this is a pre-taped segment that Kamala Harris delivered.
Hang on. Who was that?
Oh, sorry, Mary Catherine Gallagher. Mary Catherine Gallagher. It's so nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, Mary Catherine. Right now I'm trying to record my speech for tonight's dinner.
Oh, yeah, I know. I just want to say that I'm Catholic, and tonight is one of the biggest dinners next to the Last Supper.
It is a very important dinner, and it's an important tradition that I'm so proud to be a part of.
Sometimes when I get nervous, I stick my fingers under my arms and I simmer them like that. But that's gross.
So tell me something. I'm giving a speech. Do you have some thoughts about what I might say tonight?
My feelings about what you should say tonight would be best expressed in a monologue from one of my favorite made-for-TV series.
Okay, let's hear it.
Don't you see, man?
So this was a skit that they used to do on Saturday Night Live. Molly Shannon is the actress. And so here's the interesting thing about this. If I can just sort of break this down and analyze it from an artistic or entertainment perspective. This sketch that they used to do on Saturday Night Live with this character is awkward humor. It's very awkward humor, where this person acts so strange in a universe where everyone else is normal. Mm-hmm. And the audience laughs at that awkward tension, right? The humor only works when there's a live audience laughing at it and laughing with it and participating in the awkwardness. The fact that this was pre-taped, number one, already makes it weird because there's no live reaction at the time the sketch is going on, number one. Number two, this is Kamala Harris basically handing over the duties to be funny to
someone
a
else.
professional actress and comedian who, by the way, we haven't seen or heard from in 20 years. And instead of actually carrying out herself, and she gets to present herself as the serious, smart, intelligent person who won't lower herself to being funny. It fails at every measure that this thing is supposed to do. It, first of all, it wasn't funny because it was set up in a way that it wasn't going to be funny. It was just going to be weird and awkward. But secondly, she's not a participant in the funny part of it, which is the whole point of the Al Smith dinner.
Listen, I know that Kamala Harris isn't a funny person, but her campaign up until this week was running on the joy. And so this should have been a layup opportunity for her to bring that lightheartedness, that funniness. Hey, toad out the cackle. it might have been appropriate in this moment to be able to present yourself as if you truly are joyful and authentically happy. But I don't think she is. But this could have been an opportunity for her to present another side of her, because obviously what she's been presenting lately is not winning her votes. And she blew it. She turned it over to someone else. I get that if you don't think you're funny enough, maybe you want a little bit of help. But she took herself out of the sketch, so to speak.
I just disagree with you. You said that you don't think Kamala Harris is funny. I think she's a laugh riot. I mean, just...
well, maybe
everything is in context. My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context.
The only person laughing is her. She's she's not funny.
All right, let's compare and contrast.
Okay.
You've got that choice as the person who's going to be telling you jokes for the next 4 years, or this person.
White dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White dudes for Harris. Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me.
That's a good one.
Every one of those people is voting for me.
623.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:36 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here on this Friday morning in your nation's capital. Coming up at 7:05, Hans von Spakovsky, Election Law Reform Initiative at Heritage Foundation. We're going to break down all of the early voting reports that we're getting in, as well as some of the key states and what their voting process and laws happen to be, so that none of us are surprised in 2.5 weeks. Then at 7:35, Bram Weinstein will give us a preview of this weekend's Commanders game as they look to bounce back from the Ravens' loss. 8:05, Eli Lake on the killing of that Hamas terrorist yesterday. And then at 8:35, Kevin Sorbo, actor, conservative. He's in the new Reagan movie that is now streaming and available across the board. It's Larry O'Connor. That's Patrice Onwuka, not available across the board. She's taken.
No,
Jonathan.
Absolutely. That ring,
whatsoever.
a certain Mr. Onwuka put a ring on this one.
That's right. The very happy and satisfied Mr. Onwuka. Joining us right now, also to reflect on the death of this Hamas terrorist, is Ron Halber. Ron Halber is the president, CEO of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. Mr. Halber, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Good morning.
So we have confirmation here based on this photograph that this dirtbag terrorist is no longer among the living. And can you just reflect quickly about what kind of evil, horrible human being this was and what he was responsible for?
Well, I think you summed it up. Evil human being. If we can add some more adjectives, that would help. Nobody is upset that he is no longer among the living. This man is the architect of the atrocities of October 7th. He's the one who laid out the plans that led to the deaths of 1,200 innocent people, women, Jewish women and girls being sexually brutalized, thousands of people being injured, and obviously the Israeli response and everything that has happened in the last year. So if you want to look at somebody to blame for the turmoil in the Middle East today, that was Sinwar. So the fact that he's no longer among the living is a positive thing for those of us who are living.
Now, what's interesting to me, though, is yesterday Vice President Kamala Harris did deliver 3 minutes of prepared remarks about the killing of Mr. Sinwar, and she seemed very pleased about it. She seemed like she was rather, she said things. Well, here, take a listen. This is cut 33, if you don't mind, Michael.
Sure. Israel confirmed that Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, is dead, and justice has been served. And the United States, Israel, and the entire world are better off as a result. Okay,
then that's fine. And she went on to say, we will always bring you to justice, speaking to terrorists. Help me out here, Mr. Halber, because just a few months ago, right before Israel launched their attack into Rafah to try to root out terrorist dirtbags just like Mr. Sinwar, she had this to say at the time. This is cut 34, Michael.
Any major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake. Let me tell you something. I have studied the maps.
There we go. She studied the maps after all. So, Mr. Halber, help me out because she was against the incursion into Rafah. In your estimation, would Mr. Sinwar have been found and neutralized in the way that he has were it not for that incursion into Rafah?
No, because Israeli troops wouldn't have gone in, and that's where he was found. So it's pretty simplistic. I mean, look, it's a lot of people. You know, the United States government has a right to go ahead and to speak to Israel and to offer their opinions on matters when they're responsible for over 70% of their imported weapons and gives Israel international diplomatic, economic, and security help. And in most cases, the administration has been right. And the support Biden has given to Israel has been ironclad. I think this was a misjudgment. I think the Israelis were on the ground, but you know it's forgivable because the vice president had seen the unfortunate number of Palestinians who had been killed in the previous battles as a result of Hamas embedding their civilians, obviously purposely wanting their deaths so that people like you in the media would lead the news hour talking about death as opposed to the responsibility of Israel to defend themselves. So I don't really offer much. I'm not very upset about that. I think it was something that even the Israelis were surprised at how little deaths, at how few civilian deaths were caused when they went into Rafah.
Okay.
So thinking what happens next, I mean, I've been seeing headlines that this is now a time for a shift, maybe for Israel to end its campaign against and stop rooting out Hamas. And then also, you know, potentially this is an opportunity for a negotiation of the remaining hostages that are still being held by Hamas. What do you think is going to happen next?
Well, you know, it's a very good question. I think that it's very, very difficult to predict, and I understand all the international, like Germany and other countries are all saying it's time now to get a deal and have a ceasefire and stop the hostages. But you know, right now Israel doesn't even know where to address that. There's a vacuum of leadership. Nobody's in charge of Hamas right now. Nobody knows. You know, have they been so decentralized? Are they in numerous tunnels? Is anybody in charge? It depends. The next leader is Sinwar's brother, you know, who may be just as extreme. Things may not happen. However, you know, things in the Middle East have always changed. Are always full of surprises. I mean, for example, the next leader of Hamas will realize that they've been decimated, and will take the opportunity to you know, in their mind, reconstitute and regroup, which won't happen, but let them believe it. And sue for a hostage deal. Maybe they know that they're losing the support of the population. I mean, one news reporter, interestingly, said online, when they were being interviewed on camera, that lots of Palestinians were saying, "Oh my God, we're so upset that he's gone." And privately, they're just like cheering because the guy repressed the population of the Gazans for years to come. Because remember, it used to be the Palestinian Authority that was in control of that area, and then the Palestinian Authority was overthrown by Hamas by throwing their men off of roofs. Wow. And then they took over. So the life's been miserable. So for the promise of what could have been in Gaza since 2007, when Hamas take over, has been denied because of an organization that was more interested in spending money that was coming in for civilian purposes on terrorist infrastructure. I think right now it's going to be very difficult. We're not going to know for a few days. And remember, there's a lot of complicating factors. There's still the war in Lebanon. The fact that Israel is set at any point to go ahead and strike back. And then we know that if the Israelis strike back, the Iranians are likely to strike back, and that could draw U.S. forces in. So it's a very complex. But if I were a hostage family this morning, and I've met with many members of the hostage family, I'd be finally feeling there's a glimmer of hope after 2 months of almost nothing taking place from a negotiation point of view.
So quickly, if we could, Mr. Halber, what do you think the conditions need to be to have a ceasefire or an end of these hostilities at this point as Israel continues to try to defend herself on multiple fronts?
If you're talking about a ceasefire in Gaza specifically, I think number one, the Hamas has to internalize that they've lost. They have to internalize that they are no longer an army. They're now a ragtag group of guerrillas, that they've been defeated, and to decide what is their most. They have to decide whether continuing to fight Israel in a war that just goes on and on is in their interest or not. I think it's very simple. Until we know who the decision maker is and what their world outlook is, we don't know. Hezbollah is not going to be able to provide them with the military support. Most of their leaders have been assassinated and decimated, and every day Israel's giving them a harder and harder blow to try to decouple. Hamas thought that Hezbollah would continue to be able to attack Israel, but they're losing their point. So, from a strategic point of view, they're losing every advantage. But Hamas is not rational. Rational people don't send people across the border and die. So I think it's going to take the next few days till we sort out who's in charge, and we also have to see what the ramifications of an Iranian attack, of an Israeli attack. And we know the Iranians are full of very bolstered language, very bolstering language, very bragging language, but we know that they're anxious as hell because Israel can turn off the lights in Iran probably if they need to. So we'll see what the next few days bring.
Ron Halber,
Thank
CEO
you so
of the
much,
Jewish
sir.
Community Relations Council. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's 6:45, Patrice. Look at that.
Yeah.
Time flies.
WMAL, making sense of party politics, because somebody's got to hold their feet to the fire. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
As you can see, I'm obviously here in person. This is me, not a clone of me. And the reason I'm here in person is because Pennsylvania is so important to the future of the world.
Elon Musk campaigning for Donald Trump yesterday in Pennsylvania. By the way, the staging, a giant, enormous American flag behind him. He looks like George C. Scott in the opening scene from Patton. It's amazing.
Yeah.
He wasn't the only rich person campaigning for a presidential candidate. He was in Pennsylvania, but over in Wisconsin, it looks like Kamala Harris employed the efforts of Rachel Maddow to stump for him as that. Oh, wait a second. That's Mark Cuban. I'm so sorry.
Oh, wow. That's a low blow.
This has become a meme online. Mark Cuban's appearance, it has been altered over the last several years, and he now, people are joking that he's actually Rachel Maddow. But no, Mark Cuban, the outspoken billionaire, not as much of a billionaire as Elon Musk, but still, he's got his fortune, and Shark Tank star. He was campaigning for Kamala Harris in Wisconsin. So that's interesting.
I mean, he needs to grow his hair out just a little bit more at the top. I'm looking at a side-by-side of them. He was on her show. But I could see where people would say, the face, there's a slight resemblance. They wear black. I could see it.
She looks a little more masculine. I'm not going to lie.
She does have a more masculine look.
So anyway, there you go. You've got Elon Musk in Pennsylvania. You've got Mark Cuban in Wisconsin. And, the voters will decide. Donald Trump actually had something to say about Mark Cuban and all the other white dudes for Kamala.
There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White Dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White Dudes for Harris. Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me.
Sorry, I can't get enough of that joke. I'm going to play it as often as possible all morning long. And Mark Cuban should probably check on the missus.